Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Clientology Daily Insights. Today, I want to talk about a tool that we use a lot, and unfortunately, most people don't. And that tool is the calculation of return on investment. Before I get into that, I just want to invite anybody watching this to join our Clientology community. It's a free LinkedIn community. You can join by clicking the URL in the show notes below or by scanning the QR code. It is free to join, and all we're looking for is like-minded professionals who truly care about building authentic relationships in their communities and serving our dream clients, the entrepreneurs out there who are changing the world. So one of the questions we encourage through the clientology process every step of the way is that you ask yourself, what is my return on investment? Also known as ROI. And this is really, really basic business. I realize that not everybody has a finance and accounting background, but this is something I learned in university. And one of my little pet peeves is that a lot of traditional marketers, they don't want you to understand the return on investment and they don't want you to calculate it. So return on investment has a function of how much are we spending versus how much do we get back? And it also looks at the size of risk. So I'm going to explain all of this, but really the non-English version, the description is ROI is the ratio between the net return and the cost of an investment. So the formula is really, really simple. It's the final value of your investment, what you get at the end, less the initial cost, and that net return is divided by the initial cost of the investment multiplied by 100. Don't worry, I have an example. Now, in terms of expected ROI, I personally am a firm believer that every marketing piece that you do, every marketing effort, and by the way, this is a good way to decide between paths in a business, based on the risk that something injects into your life, it should generate a higher return on investment. So my benchmark, my minimum rule of thumb for marketing spend is that it should generate for every dollar you spend, you should get $10 back. So if you're calculating the return on investment for that, it would be your investment of your final value of the investment, which would be the $10 you get back, minus the initial cost, which is $1. So your net return is $9 divided by 1. So that's a 9 times return on investment, which is 900%. So I believe that that's your minimum benchmark. If your marketing dollars aren't getting you that, you need to look seriously at where you're spending your money. Now, if you've got something that's kind of working, but it's not at that 9 times return, then I think you want to revisit. And one of the things you can do and you must do is track where your dollars are being spent. And I'll get into that in in just a minute in terms of time, energy, and money. But you need to track where you're putting your energy, your money, your investment, and you need to track what's coming back. So again, do not do any marketing if you can't track. If you're a large company and you've got unlimited budget to build brand, I applaud you. I wish you all the best. But most of the people who are talking to me, who are following Clientology, you're not in that unlimited budget where you're building brand. And by the way, the worst thing you can do is copy what the big companies are doing because they are okay with investing in brand, knowing that it'll come back to them over time. Whereas if you're small business, you don't have the luxury of brand investments. You need to invest in marketing efforts, in marketing strategies that get you clients today. So as I said, a good expected return on investment is 9 times your initial cost. Now, again, if you're looking at a treasury bill, which has very low risk, it will return you something around 2%. When it comes to business, if you're building a massive building, you're going to expect a much higher return on it because why would you build the building versus a T-bill if your return was only 2%? So that's what I'd like to give you is the discipline. When you're doing marketing, you want to track the return on investment for each marketing tactic that you use, or as an overall strategy, because different tactics have different returns on investment. And if you're getting a low return on your investment, you need to ask yourself, following the 80/20 principle, is that an area you should be investing? Now, my other pet peeve when it comes to return on investment is that people are really unclear what they think you should be including, because mostly it's, if I'm running an ad campaign on a platform for you, they'll say, "Oh, your ad spend is $1,000 a month." What they forget to tell you is, "Oh, and we charge you another thousand a month to manage that ad spend," which, by the way, cuts your ROI significantly. But also, we're going to take 10 hours of your life because we need you to help us, and we're going to drain a little bit of your energy. So, when you're calculating return on investment, you need to factor these things in. And it becomes a great tool for picking. I had a previous video where you say yes to something, it's no to something else. If you're looking at ROI, it's a great tool to help you decide in business what to say yes to, what to say no to. And I just challenge each and every one of you. The biggest mistake I see every entrepreneur making out there is, "I'll do it myself. My time is free." It is not free. You're giving something else up. So if you discount your time to free, you're going to make a lot of decisions that will spend a lot of your time and not necessarily yield results. As an entrepreneur, you should set a target. I have some great people out there. The example they set is their time is worth at least $1,000 an hour. That's an extreme number, but it makes you really think about, is this a good decision? Maybe put a reasonable starting point for your time. But if you're in the profession, if you're in the trades, if your billable rate is $100 an hour, that is a really good estimate of what your time is, because if you're spending time on marketing, you're giving up a billable hour. So that's my little rant, my little tips. I'm going to do two quick examples. And I just want to ask you if these are good returns on investment. So on the left, we have paid ads. On the right, we have an authority book. And the initial cost for a paid ad is, as an example, it might take you 10 hours of your time at $100 an hour. So that's $1,000. It's not going to take a lot of energy. So I'm going to say it's low cost. And in this case, we'll just ignore energy because it's about the same on both. Actually, I would say on the authority book, it adds energy. Now, it might cost you $1,000 a month, or let's say $2,500 a month for 2 months. So total cost is $5,000. And over time, it yields you $10,000 in revenue. So most marketers, if they're aware of the need for ROI, they'll calculate it just based on the money you're spending. So in this case, if we spend 5,000 and we get 10,000 back, the return on that investment is 100%. In theory, that sounds like a great investment. The reality is, if we've spent some of our time, putting together ads, talking to the ad company, getting them to check things, getting them to fix things, there's a lot of effort with ad campaigns. You don't set it and forget it until you know it's getting results. If we factor in $1,000 for your time over 10 hours, the ROI actually drops to 66.67%. So it's still not terrible. It's just not as great as the 900% we're expecting. Now, again, on the authority book, we're looking at an initial cost. We know from experience that a typical author spends 3 hours publishing their book with us, and that's following our system. So there's an hour to record the book, an hour to review the book, and then an hour of back and forth. If we assume the yield is constant, again, we're all about test and measure, test and measure. If we assume the yield is constant, and we're generating $10,000 in revenue, which, by the way, is on average for our clients, it's an extra 5 clients. So it's not a big number, but we're assuming only 5 new clients. Using the same ROI calculation, the typical just based on the money spent, you're looking at the same ROI, which is 100%. Now, if we are very candid, we like to say, here's your time, here's your energy, here's your money cost. We'll ignore the energy gain that people gain, the momentum they gain from an authority book, the calculation showing the net return divided by the initial investment times 100. It's still low in our expectations because it's only 88.68%. Now, we're showing this as a very low conservative number because we want to compare, and we want you to be able to compare what paid ads look like versus an authority book. So we're using all of the paid ad parameters, and we're just plunking in our real costs. Now, the difference is both look good, right? We have 66% versus 88%. Both options outweigh what we'd get if we invested in a T-bill, for example. Now, on the left, we still have the paid ads. And the most fundamental thing, the challenge I have with paid ads is that your results stop. So first of all, the results stop the second you stop paying, but also the results don't start until after you've paid for a while. So typically what I hear with paid ads is you're looking at a 3 to 6 month period before you start to see return. The other thing I see, there's a lot of hidden costs in terms of time spent reviewing ads, approving ads, going back and forth with the marketing team. There is significantly hidden costs in terms of time and energy. But also there's usually, again, they'll tell you how much the ad spend is. They don't always tell you up front how much it costs to manage it. Even then, usually it's after the fact. As you get the contract and you sign it, there's the hidden costs. And again, unexpected time and energy being burnt. And as I said, sometimes it takes 3 to 6 months to get results. And rarely do I meet a marketing person. Now, the good ones, I will be honest, they have a vested interest. They're going to show you the return on investment. Typical ones don't want to talk about return on investment because they can't factor it in. They don't know how to track it. So I'm going to compare that to the authority book. And the most important piece I want to say, the authority book to me is like a perpetual lead generation client getting exercise, because once you've written the book, you are always an author. Nobody can ever take that away from you. And it really comes down to, do you want to keep using the book? Yes or no. But if you consistently use the book, your incremental cost to get another book printed is very, very low. Typically, each book we put out to the world, our typical authority figure, they're going to invest somewhere around, they're going to buy 25 books, they're going to invest somewhere under $250, $500. It's a very low investment. Every time they need more books, they get more books, but each book should bring back a client. So we're looking at very good return on investment. There are no hidden costs. We calculate it out for you at the beginning. Before you sign the contract, you know exactly what you're going to be spending. And we actually include the first batch of books in our contract because we want to prove to you that it works. Now, the other thing is, we're not asking you to spend extra time. Like we said, our upfront investment of time is about 3 hours. We're going to help you leverage your existing efforts. So if you're out there joining networking groups, talking to people, we're going to show you how to leverage that. So we're actually going to give you time back, and we're going to create energy for you. Because when we see somebody who's written a book, they suddenly stand a little taller, they talk a little more confidently, they close more deals. And in our process of, assuming you follow it, we typically start to see the first round of new clients coming in within 4 weeks. Best case scenario, we actually had one. The day they received their books, they went out and they handed them out. They actually got 3 clients on their first day. That is not typical, but that's what's possible. And above all, I think this is where we really stand out. We provide the tools to help you track and measure your return on investment. Again, our minimum, our target is 9 times what you've spent should come back to you. So we're looking for a return on investment of 900%. Now, if you're using the books and you're following our advice, we know with certainty we can get you there. If you're not following our advice, we have tools in place to make sure we're testing and measuring. Everything in clientology is about the science. So we are trying to figure out how do we get you to 900%. And the good news is we have the path. We just need to make sure you stay on it. So our job is to keep you on the path and to hold you accountable. Now, whether we work together or not, my advice to you, and I hope your takeaway from this video, is that when you're making a business decision and you have to decide between 2 paths, that either you figure out how do we create an experiment so that we can test both paths and ultimately pick the best one, or how can we pick the best path and commit to that fully, and while we're on that path, make sure we're optimizing results. So return on investment is a very often overlooked tool. And I highly recommend if you're a small business, medium-sized business, you're growing exponentially, whatever size of business you are, that you're calculating return on investment. Thank you, and here's to your growth.